Justice Brandeis said that the right most cherished by civilized men is the right to be left alone. And yet in Washington, every day, in every nook and cranny of your lives, your business life, your personal life, the government wants to get a piece of you. What we need to do is shut down the Washington machine and give you your freedom back.
Amen!
I stood for 10.5 hours on the Senate floor to defend your right to be left alone. Woo! My feet are still sore. I came off the Senate floor, and the first question that came from the media, the very first question from the media was, how does it feel to be the most unpopular man in Washington? I said, I wear it as a badge of honor. Washington is completely out of touch. You have people in Washington that do things that you would never, ever approve of. I'll give you an idea. Does anybody here think it's a good idea to borrow money from China to send it to Pakistan? No. We borrow $1 million every minute. We've got roads and problems and schools and crime and all of these things we have to take care of in our country, and they're taking your money, not only your money, they're borrowing money we don't have to send to someone else's country. It's obscene, and it ought to stop. I say not one penny more. I'm on the Foreign Relations Committee, so we had an amendment come forward that I put forward, and I think it sounds pretty reasonable. There are some countries around the world who will put a Christian to death, or actually any minority religion to death, if someone changes their religion, marries someone of another religion, or commits what is called blasphemy, which means you don't agree with whatever the state religion is. But do you think really anybody in America would want to send money to a country that is putting Christians on death row?
No.
There's a woman by the name of Asia Bibi, and she's been on death row in Pakistan for 5 years. Her crime? She went to the well to draw water, and as she was drawing water, they began chanting, "Death, death to the Christian." They began beating her with sticks. They began stoning her. And at this point, she's crying out for help. And at this point, the police finally come, and she thinks she's being rescued. And as they rescue her, they say, "No, you will now be put in prison on charges that the other women say that you committed blasphemy." She's been on death row for 5 years. You send billions of your dollars to Pakistan every day now. We spent $100 billion in Afghanistan. Well, I thought we had to go there to stop the people who attacked us. Our mistake was then staying and staying and staying. Our mistake. Our mistake is in planting the flag and saying, we're going to create a nation out of you. They asked one of the other candidates about this, and I don't like to mention names, but he was a senator from Florida. They asked him about nation building, and he says, well, I'm not for nation building, but I am for helping them build nations. Here's the problem. We have to defend ourselves. The most important thing we do is our national defense. It's the one thing that you can't do individually. We need a country to do that. It's in the Constitution. As Commander-in-Chief, it will be my #1 responsibility to defend the country. But that does not mean intervening everywhere all the time. And it does not mean that every intervention is helpful. It also doesn't mean you can give a blank check to the Pentagon. You can't borrow money from China, even if it's for a purpose you think government should be involved with. We don't project power around the world from bankruptcy. bankruptcy court. So we've been having this debate. I had this debate once again with the senator from Florida. I had this debate. He wanted to increase defense spending, and I said, well, if we really need to, we should cut a corresponding amount of other spending. He said, oh no, I just want to increase spending. And I said, why don't we have a side-by-side vote? Why don't we have yours where you just increase it blindly with no cuts, and I'll put up an alternative where we can have the increase in spending, but we'll cut spending in another place to account for it. By and large, people by the droves voted just to increase spending by borrowing from China. That's the problem in Washington. You have Democrats who will borrow the money from China to spend it on domestic programs, but you often have Republicans who will borrow the money from China to spend it on the military. We do not project power from bankruptcy court. Admiral Mullen. Said that the #1 threat to our national security is our debt. Yep. We have an $18 trillion debt, borrowing $1 million a minute. Many economists are saying that it's costing us 1 million jobs a year. And you say, well, where would we possibly cut? The president says, woe is me, how could we ever cut any money? Where would we cut? Let's see. What about the $300,000 we spent developing a cricket league in Afghanistan? Or maybe the $300,000 we spent studying whether or not a Swedish massage on bunny rabbits would help them relax after exercise.
Unbelievable.
Or maybe the $300,000 we spent studying whether people are crankier when they're hungry. I love this study. They gave little dolls. I don't know if they were voodoo dolls technically or not, but they gave dolls to the participants, and they gave a needle. And you were supposed to jab the doll with a needle if you were cranky because you were hungrier and hungrier. And the hungrier people became, the more they jabbed the doll. That cost you $300,000. I think we could have polled the audience on that. But the other side says we can't cut any money. There are billions and billions of dollars of duplicate programs that could be cut. But the bottom line is it's going to take the reverse of what we have in Washington. The consensus now is Republicans and Democrats both get together and spending goes up. We need the opposite. We need both to come together and say enough's enough, we're ruining the country, let's only spend what comes in. Right. People ask me, what's the worst thing the president has done to the country? And I tell them, how long do you have? It's a long list. But if we want to sum it all up, and we want to put it into something that is instructive, that we could learn from and others could learn from, is that this president has been collapsing the separation of powers. Yep. So there is no ability for anyone to sue over privacy in our country because we've said, oh no, we're frightened. And because we're so frightened, we're going to give everybody liability, which means you have no privacy. This has been going on for a while. Some people say, well, it's only boring business records. Who cares? If I have your credit card bill, I can tell whether you drink, whether you smoke, whether you gamble, and how much. I can tell what magazines you read, what books you read. I can tell what your philosophy is, your ideology. I can tell what your religion is from your credit card bill. I can tell who your doctors are. I can tell who your medicines are. I can tell what's wrong with you. I can even tell what procedures you've had from your credit card bill. You don't think metadata is important? You don't think that the intelligence community thinks it's important? One of the previous heads of the intelligence community said, we kill people based on metadata. So they must be pretty damn certain of what they're finding out through metadata. Jeez. 2 Stanford students studied the cell phone records of people who volunteered for a study, and they found 85% of the time they could tell your religion. Our founding fathers fought the war of independence over the Fourth Amendment and your right to privacy. We should not give up on it so easily. There have been a few scandals in President Obama's administration. You don't have to list them all. When I think about them, I think about the old nursery rhyme, Old MacDonald's Farm. Here a scandal, there a scandal. Everywhere a scandal. But the one that probably bothers me the worst is Benghazi.
Amen.
Here's the thing. It wasn't just the spin. Politicians almost all lie, almost all the time. You can just expect it, okay? So they tried to push off blame and say it didn't have anything to do with terrorism. It was on 9/11, just coincidence. And these were just friendly people who got unhappy about a movie. All right, that's completely stupid, and we debunk that, all right? But that isn't what makes me so mad about the Benghazi episode. What makes me mad is that for 9 months they pleaded for more security. From February on of that year, 9 months, 8 months before the ambassador was assassinated, they kept pleading for more security. In February, Hillary Clinton's State Department decided to bring home a group of 6 Special Forces guys. In March, they brought home 6 more. In April, in Benghazi, they said, well, we would like a DC-3 to be able to fly around the country in case of emergency, which they ultimately needed and had no claim. Denied by the State Department. 3 days after Hillary Clinton denied the plane that they could fly around in Libya, she approved $100,000 for a charging station for the Vienna embassy. It seems they were greening up the embassy. And they had bought a whole bunch of Chevy Volts. All right, no, they didn't. You bought them a bunch of Chevy Volts. They had 24 Chevy Volts, and then someone said, oh no, we're from the government. We don't know how to plug these things in. And they had the wrong plugs. So they spent $100,000. So no plane to fly around Benghazi, but $100,000 for a charging station. You get to the summertime before the ambassador is assassinated. What is Hillary Clinton's State Department spending money on? Well, they spent $100,000 sending 3 comedians to India on the Make Chai, Not War. They spent $650,000, Hillary Clinton's State Department, on Facebook ads. Seems the State Department didn't have enough Facebook friends. They spent $700,000 on landscaping for the Brussels embassy. But the real kicker, they spent $5 million on crystal barware for the embassies. But they didn't have enough for a 50-year-old plane to transport the ambassador around. And you know why they didn't want to leave the special forces there? Because Hillary Clinton is so politically correct that she's ashamed that the soldiers might have guns and that they might show their boots. This comes from Colonel Wood. He was the remaining 16-man security team. He informs us that the State Department told them not to wear their military boots on patrol because the freedom fighters in Libya might be offended by our show of force. Do you know who these freedom fighters in Libya were? Jihadists. These were people that we had in prison. These are people who had been fighting against us. These were and are the radical Islamists who now run the country. Actually, there is no country. The whole war from top to bottom was a mistake, a huge mistake. And you can blame that on Hillary Clinton, but you can also assess some blame to those who wanted to go to war in Libya from our party. It was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
So we're leading up to the month before he's assassinated. Colonel Wood's there with a 16-person security team. He's sending message after message back to Washington. We need to stay. There's a danger of being overrun. Finally, the ambassador gets in. The ambassador sending cable after cable to Hillary Clinton. So when Hillary Clinton comes before my committee, when the investigation occurs, after the ambassador's been assassinated, I ask her this question. I said, Secretary Clinton, did you read the cables from the ambassador? She acted all put off and said, no. And acted as if it was someone else's responsibility. Libya is one of the 5 most dangerous countries in the world, probably. And she didn't have time to read the cables. But I think Hillary Clinton, by her dereliction of duty, by her not providing security, should forever be precluded from being president. We need to know how to win again, though. And the way we win is not by playing nice with the Clintons or excusing their graft, excusing their enrichment of themselves through their political service. We have to go head to head, knuckle to knuckle with the Clintons. They don't play nice. We need to play hardball. It was a mistake in the last election not to challenge President Obama on Benghazi.
That's right.
Right now, our campaign leads Hillary Clinton in 5 states won by President Obama.
All right.
We lead Hillary Clinton in Pennsylvania, which hasn't been won by a Republican since 1988. But the reason we lead Hillary Clinton in those states is because I am different. I am different than all of the other candidates. I am fiscally conservative, like some of them say they are. But I am also conservative in the sense that no money can be spent that we don't have, no matter even if it's for a good purpose. I also have a message, though, that I've been taking across America to places Republicans haven't been going. I was in the south side of Chicago last week. I've been to Philadelphia. I was in Detroit. I've been in Detroit 3 or 4 times. I was in Highland Park in the center of Detroit. I've been to Ferguson with the message that big government not only messes up by getting involved in your business, but big government's also unfair and discriminatory in the war on drugs and in your private life.
Amen.
Big government sucks! Big government sucks!
And while I have a few areas that I disagree with the president, there is one area that I actually agree with what he's doing. He's giving some clemency to people who've been in jail for 15 years for crack cocaine. I don't approve of drugs. I don't approve of drugs. I don't recommend them for anyone. But here's the thing. You've got a white college kid who does powder cocaine and a black kid does the same amount of cocaine. The black kid gets 15 years and the white kid gets 6 months in probation. Our jails are full of black and brown people, and it's unfair, and we ought to end it. We need to be the party for the entire Bill of Rights. When we are the party for the entire Bill of Rights, we're pretty good on the Second Amendment. And in fact, if you don't believe me, don't come into my house unannounced. Of the 55 Republicans running for president, most will be good on the Second Amendment. I think we have most of the people who believe in the Second Amendment in our party. That's good. But let's also be the party of the Fourth Amendment. It says you have the right to privacy and that the government should stay
Stay the hell out of that.
We also need to be the party of the Fifth and Sixth Amendment. I call these the Justice Amendments. The Fifth Amendment says the government can't take your property without just compensation. But we had a ruling from the Supreme Court, the Kelo versus New London decision. And it won't surprise you that sometimes the Supreme Court's wrong. In that case, they said that the government can come and condemn your house and call your house blight, even though you call it up. They can condemn your house and give it to another private property owner if the other private property owner pays more in taxes. My goodness, taking a person's house and giving it to got to stop this. Private property should never, ever be taken from one owner and given to another. This is going on in other ways as well. There's something called civil asset forfeiture. You can be driving down the street, or as some have said, driving while black down the street. You're pulled over and they say, do you have any money? And they say, I have $1,000, I'm going to the dentist. And they say, give it to me. We say, well, what did I do wrong? What are you charging with me? Give me your money. And you protest and they say, well, we'll give you half of it back if you sign an agreement saying you will not sue to get the rest of it back. It sounds a little bit more than like highway robbery to me than it does justice.
Seriously.
I say that you should never ever have your property taken or your cash taken without being first convicted of a crime. This happens all the time. There was a kid, once again, doing something wrong, selling $40 worth of illegal drugs out of his parents' house in Philadelphia. They took the house. Now, do you think if you've got a kid who has problems and is selling drugs and you want to make them better, you think it helps to take the house? No. This is crazy. And the kid had not yet been convicted either of the crime. We've gone overboard. We've gone crazy on the war on drugs. In some cities, it's 15-1 the arrest of black people versus white people for marijuana. And people say, well, what are you saying, that everybody's a racist? It isn't done in a racist fashion. It's just there happens to be more crime in big cities, and there's a higher density population of African Americans, and you add it up over and over and over again, and that's who ends up getting arrested. But it's not fair, it's not right, and what we need to do is totally reassess this war on drugs, try to fix the drug problem, but let's don't think we can fix it by putting everybody in jail. We also have to be the party of the Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment says you have a right to a trial by jury. And you're like, who could be opposed to a right to a trial by jury? You know, who could possibly be? Well, let me think. I was having a debate on the Senate floor over something called indefinite detention. Indefinite detention means that any one of you could be accused of a crime and put in jail forever. If they call you an enemy of the state, which there are some criteria, they put out some criteria of people you should report to government who they might want to believe are enemies of the state. Missing fingers, stains on your clothing, likes to pay in cash. I won't ask for anybody to raise their hands. Has multiple guns in the house. I won't ask for anybody to raise their hands. But the thing is that this is the criteria of the people they want you to report to the government. Wouldn't you? I know for damn sure I want my lawyer before they come to my house.
That's right.
I want my day in court. But we were having this debate. Like I said, I don't like to name names, but it was a senator from Arizona. So we're having this debate over indefinite detention, and I said, do you mean you could take an American citizen and send them to Guantanamo Bay for the rest of their life without a trial, without a lawyer, without their day in court? And he said, yeah, if they're dangerous. It kind of begs the question, doesn't it? Who gets to decide who's dangerous and who's not?